Okay, we're good to go. Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Kim Heffernan. I am the Professional Development Coordinator in the College of Business, University of Akron. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you, so this is our CBA Professional Development Summer Speaker Series. Just in these ever-changing times, we thought, what better time to offer a speaker series for our students, excuse me, to log on and help build their network, and then just also address some of the things that they need to be going through right now, looking for internships or jobs, or maybe their internships or jobs offers were rescinded. Now it's just the better time than ever to connect. So that's the purpose of the speaker series. So we're actually 4 sessions in. This is our 5th session. We're continuing throughout July. For those of you who are joining from previous sessions, we're glad to have you back. And for those of you who it's your first time, welcome, and hopefully you'll continue to join us throughout July. We're really excited today. This is going to be a really great session. Before we jump into it, just a couple of good housekeeping items. For those of you who are returning, probably sick of me hearing me say these things, but just some good housekeeping. If you could just keep yourself on mute just to mitigate the background noise. If you're not, speaking or asking a question, that would be really helpful. Webcams, we would just love to see you. It's difficult. We're in this virtual environment, but we'd still like to see your faces, and I'm sure Tina, our speaker today, would love to see you too. So I just really encourage you to turn on your webcam. No judgment. I mentioned this is not a job interview, so if you're sitting in your backyard or in your living room, that's no big deal. We encourage you to turn your webcam on, and just encourage you also to use the chat function as well to ask questions. We want this to be an interactive session, so I will keep an eye on the chat for any questions that come through, and I will feed those to our speakers. So with that, I'd like to welcome Tina Meyer-Hawks. She is VP of Marketing at J.M. Smucker Company. We are really excited to have her here today. I think 20 plus years at Smucker's, right?
Yeah, that's
Fantastic.
right.
And a member of the Department of Marketing Executive Marketing Board. We're really excited to have you and just grateful for your continued partnership. So today, I'll turn it over to Tina. Tina's going to talk about willingness to take a side road, which is actually just so relevant right now, always, but especially right now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tina.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And thanks to all of you for taking an hour out of your day to spend time with me. So I so appreciate that. I'm hoping we'll have time at the end. So raise your hand and, obviously put your comments in the chat, as Kim said, because I'd love to talk to you. I want to hear more from you than me just talking to you. But I thought, as I was asked to speak, which is it's obviously a privilege to be with you, I thought about what could be relevant today, but also, as Kim said, relevant really anytime. So obviously, we've in this pandemic environment, obviously, but even there's times when you're not. And the intent really of the conversation is to say there's times when you have your path, you kind of have an idea of what you want to do. You lay out the plan and something goes off plan, right? And so the intent of the conversation is really to say, embrace those times, because even though they can be scary, they can often lead to experiences and opportunities that you never would have had otherwise. So that's kind of going to be the whole purpose of what we talk about. So why a side road? So Kim, if you click to the next slide, I thought I would kind of just put it in perspective of saying, we probably have all been on a road trip of some sort, right? So you have your device, you have the plan, you've got it on Google Maps, whatever the case may be, and you start heading down the road and, everything's going great. You might be in an unfamiliar area, but things are going great. Then suddenly something happens, whether it's a, accident in the road, whether it's a detour that comes out of nowhere. And suddenly you're in this place of a little bit of panic. I don't know how you are, but I'm directionally impaired. So a little bit of panic. I'm in a place I don't know. What do I do next? But you really want to get to that destination, so you don't really have a choice. You kind of have to follow the detour. So you turn down the path, and then suddenly something happens. So if you can click to the next slide, suddenly you're in a place where, whether it's this great scene that you have a background that you're like, oh my goodness, what a wonderful photo op, or maybe you find a cafe and you have like the best pancakes you've ever had, or you find that great ball of twine, whatever it might be. You get where I'm going. But basically, you end up coming to a place where you never would have gone otherwise. You have an experience you never would have had otherwise. And maybe it's even a place, sorry, background noise, a place that, you then seek to go in the future because it was such a great experience. So my intent of just saying that is, there's going to be these times where things don't go your way, but you end up having this experience. But if you embrace that experience, it could actually help you get to where you want to go in a way that maybe you never would have gotten had you stayed the course. So with that in mind, if you click to the next slide, I'm going to start at the end. and then take you a little bit through my own journey, just in the idea of an experience that could be relevant. I'm hoping you can find some either similarities to things you're going through, or at least kind of give you some insight into maybe what happened for me. So if you're in a similar scenario, you can maybe apply some of this. So I'm going to start with the end and then kind of pull us back and take you through the journey. So these are really the capabilities of a vice president at Smucker Company. So if you were at our company and you saw a job posting for a vice president of marketing, this is what you would see. So these are the capabilities that the company expects us to have. So again, this is being recorded, and I'll share it again at the end. So I won't go through it in detail now, but oh my goodness, would this have been wonderful had I known this out of my undergrad, right? To know what are these expectations for some aspirational goal that I had down the line. But I had no idea what this was, and quite frankly, I didn't even know what I wanted to do when I graduated with my undergrad. So if you click to the next slide, so where was I? I was basically, I went to Bowling Green. Actually, I started at Miami of Ohio, graduated from Bowling Green, first person in my family to go to college and the first person to graduate. So I graduated, I had a degree, general business degree. I had a minor in psychology. And at the time I was like, why am I doing psychology? And honestly, it's just because I was interested. It was not necessarily for something that I thought could help me in the business world. But oh my goodness, does it? Because I think the theme you're going to hear, and probably what many of you have already realized, is relationships and understanding human behavior, learning empathy is critical no matter what role you ever take. And so little did I know that psychology minor would become so important kind of in my life, and not just business, but in my life. So I graduated. I'm like, now what do? So I went to our career center, had the great opportunity to interview, and my first role, when you click to the next slide, was at AT&T. So my first role was in sales. And what you'll find, if you've not had it yet, a career, you're about to embrace a career, sometimes those roles that you find that you don't want to do for the longest term, those are just as important as the ones that you find that that you have a passion for. So for me, sales was something that I knew I didn't want to do forever, but it was a wonderful opportunity to learn skills I probably never could have learned otherwise. So there I was at AT&T. Back then, and this is going to date me in a significant way, back then we were selling long distance. Yeah. And so for me, it was selling it to companies, right? So we had two different groups of kind of sales. It was sales coordinators and sales kind of executives. So it was either hunting for new businesses or retaining those that you had. And so I was cold calling. I was getting hung up on. It was my first job out of school. Yes, there were times I hung up and was in tears because I was like, oh, they yelled at me. And you learn about not taking things personally. You learn about like what's important in the hearts and minds of that customer. Because prior to that, in college, we talked a lot about consumers and marketing, the 4 Ps and some of those things, and about different finance and obviously e-com and all those things, but not necessarily about customers. And so in this service environment, I learned a lot about what was important to customers and why they hanging up on me. Well, they had a lot going on, right? They had a business to run, and I was interrupting that day, right? So you learn about what's important to the customer, finding the right times to have conversations, understanding their needs, and trying to apply what you wanted to do to the needs that they had was just as important with the customer as it would be with the consumer. And then delivering results. If you're in sales, if you've ever had a sales opportunity, it's all about hitting the numbers. So I learned a lot about that. So I embraced that opportunity. I learned a lot, but I knew this probably is not what I want to do long term. So I took a look out there and said, okay, what's next for me? So MTD, I want to stay in Ohio. MTD is a fantastic company. I was able to get a job there. Also just trying to get my foot in the door. And it was my job at AT&T that got me into MTD. Lots of acronyms. So got into MTD in a sales coordinator role and learned a lot about forecasting. So all these things are kind of coming together. And in the questions, if you want to know more about forecasting, there's so many kinds of forecasts. There's financial forecast, there's sales forecast, there can be operational forecasts if you're a manufacturer of products. So learned all about that. Why are they different? How do they interact? What's important about them? More customers, those customers again. But this time it was about products. So MTD sells yard machines, snow throwers, those types of things. So I learned about products. So I had service, now I had product. And then order and fill rates, all about expectations of meeting the needs of the customer regard when they place an order, meeting the needs of that order, etc. So now I'm a couple years into my career. I've done a lot of sales. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. So I stepped back and said, well, now what's next? So at that point in time, I determined it was time to get my MBA. So I started exploring programs. I ended up landing at Case Western. And, I think at that point in time, it was more about like, I knew it was business. I didn't know where or how or what. But the one thing I would say for those of you that do have the opportunity, I know some of you might be already in a graduate program, whatever works for you, everybody has their own story. But I'd say if you have the opportunity to get some experience before your MBA, it does make a significant difference. I would say personally, I had the advantage of going to my undergrad right out of high school. It was fantastic. But then when you get some real life experience and then you can apply that when you go back for your MBA, makes all the difference in the world. Some of you might be experiencing that, just to apply some of that application and then, kind of theory versus, reality. So learned a ton working with teams. In my undergrad, there wasn't a lot of teamwork. I think that's much different today. But in the master's program, it's all about teams. So you're learning to work with a lot of different personalities, different opportunities. Someone might be better at one thing than another. So you're pulling on the skills of the teams becomes critical in everything that you'll do going forward. Then consumer, I got back to consumer needs. I took a lot of classes and very quickly learned that marketing was the thing I wanted to do. So I came to know that, and I took some national classes to better understand different dynamics of cultures and communities and needs across the world. So there I was, had my master's, and I was like, okay, what do I do next? So I had a mentor that was at American Greetings, and they had some openings there. So she connected me with the right people. And so I started networking, and I felt really good about that. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to have a job at American Greetings. And then right before I graduated, they divested a few of their businesses and did a hiring freeze. So there I graduated. I had no job. Quite frankly, it was kind of a rough time. I was married, but bills were kind of accumulating, and I was out of work about 5 months. And my student loans were about to come up, and I was just like, oh, I was interviewing for all types of things. And believe me, this is not to say you should take everything that comes your way. I even interviewed for a role at Terminex, great company, but their entry level literally was crawling around in little crawl spaces to kill bugs. Yeah, don't like spiders. So that was not one I was going to take. Anyway, so I was looking. I was being, trying to networking again, finding those relationships of people that could help you. And ultimately, old school, believe it or not, Cleveland Plain Dealer, the actual paper, I found an ad for Smuckers. And at that point in time, it was 23 years ago, jobs at Smucker did not come open that often. Much smaller company now. Smucker's, a conglomerate of consumer brands. We have pet food, we have coffee, jams, jellies, peanut butter. At the time, it was just jam and jelly, natural peanut butter, and ice cream topping. So very small company. So again, I was like, what's this job? And it was all about customers, filling orders, and managing inventory. I'm like, I've done that before. Again, not ultimately what I want to do forever, but I've done that before. So I can get my foot in the door. I had the great privilege of getting that opportunity. So for 3 years, I worked at Smucker, still not marketing, the thing I was hoping to do. But in those 3 years, I learned a lot about supply chain. I learned about systems, the plant, scheduling, all of those different dynamics. And I would not change it for the world, because it was those things that when I ultimately did get into marketing, gave me the relationships, the understanding of why we could or couldn't do the things we had to do, capital investment, cash inventory, financial systems, all of those things that have made me a stronger marketer. And that honestly, if I hadn't had those roles, I don't know that I ever would have been able to gain that experience any other way. So then ultimately, going through my resume, I know I'm almost done here. Next slide. So then ultimately, based on those relationships that I had, there was somebody at the company that knew I had an interest in marketing. They had an opening, and I had my first marketing opportunity in business to business, or basically in our away from home division. So that's pretty much anything outside of the grocery store where you might buy or find products. So whether that's lodging, could be offices, could be healthcare, schools, all those places. So we were basically, again, customer marketing versus, say, to the consumer. And in the time I've been at Smucker for the last 23 years, so 20 of that has been in marketing. I've had the opportunity to be on small brands, small budgets, large budgets, work on innovation. A lot of times when you come out of school and you've done all this studying, if you have an interest in marketing, you think it's just advertising and PR and social and digital and all those things, and it is, but there's a lot more to it than that. And at Smucker, we have an internal agency model where we have people that actually work directly with our agencies on those things, and our marketing is more around kind of brand strategy. So there's differences even within the organization of different organizations that could be for marketing. So my point in telling you all of this is, you can get experiences in all these different places, and it's just how you come to know them. And then on the last slide here gets us back to where we started. When you think about the things I said, and you think about ultimately where you think your career will be, if you look at the slide and heard some of the things that I had to say, marketing skills, yeah, they probably mostly came from my marketing roles. But consumer centric, that came from a lot of the places I was before, whether that was in sales, MTD, definitely MBA. I learned a lot about that. Delivering the business, that was my first sales role when I really understood what that meant. Obviously, I built upon it through my skills along the way, but that very first sales role really showed me about what it meant to deliver the business. Entrepreneurial, I would argue the folks on this phone are way more entrepreneurial than I ever was. I think today's, generations are just, you have to be so agile in the way that you flex and the way that you come to, get insights along the way. So I would just really highly suggest stay that way, stay curious and seek to understand a lot of different things, because that'll make you so much more successful. Organizational savvy, you probably know this. Every university, every company has a culture, right? And they can be very different. And as you enter an organization, having mentors or having people that can help you understand, how do I navigate this culture? How do I get things done? How do I influence? How do I learn? How do I grow? All those things. It's so, so critically important to really get people that can help you navigate an organization. And then ultimately, this being more of a senior level role, you hope it ultimately leads you to be more of an inspirational leader where you can help folks find their best self, empower them to be who they want to be a mentor to them, and pass along some of the things that you've learned along the way so that you can be better together, right? So that's what that really means. So I know I went through that pretty quickly, but my last slide, I guess my biggest encouragement, and I would love to hear any questions you have. You're made to make a difference. So embrace those things that come your way, even the ones that you don't think are ultimately where you want to go. It's crazy what you'll learn from them if you just truly embrace them. And then as you find your passion, as you find that kind of North Star of where you want to go, leverage your networks, leverage the people that you've come to know. I think we kind of call it like a board of directors. Vet things through the people that are most meaningful in your life. They can be personal, they can be professional, they can be colleagues or students that the people are really, really critical around you. So that was kind of just my way of saying that, certain things you might know right out of the gate. I didn't know out of college what I wanted to do. I knew it was business, didn't know what that was. But take the journeys, and even if, especially today in this world where maybe internships didn't go the way you'd hoped or opportunities aren't quite what they were before, learning in this environment and what will come from this and how you manage this situation, it'll be incredible. I'm certain you'll be telling stories 20 years from now to others about what this did to help you really hone your skills to be whatever you hope to be. So that's it. I talk fast. You probably realize that. So that's all the content I had, but I would love to answer any questions you have, any feedback you have. So what's on your mind?
I'll get things started with a question. So I just will encourage everyone here to type your questions in the chat, and they could be things, that are relevant to you right now. Things you're thinking about for the future in terms of internships or jobs, or kind of how to navigate that. I'll just start with, and you kind of did elaborate, I was kind of holding this question about mentors and just how important they can be as you're kind of navigating what you think you want to do and then what that might ultimately turn out to be. And so I've heard of mentors kind of referred to as like your own personal advisory board, almost. And I'll use this as a plug for our, we have a mentoring program in the College of Business. It's called Coach and Connect. And so for any of students who might be interested, but one of the things that we try to help students do is kind of start to build their professional network. It's part of the reason why we have these sessions. And so if you could just elaborate a little bit more on, do you have multiple mentors, and how did you meet those people? And then, when do you get in touch with them for advice? Like, how do you use them, and how could students start to get a mentor so that they actually have someone to go to for these kind of questions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm glad to hear you have one at the business school because that's absolutely fantastic. And hopefully you build those relationships that'll last for a very long time to come. At Smucker, we also I head up our marketing mentor program. And so our intent is very similar. If anyone comes into any of the growth organizations that we have, we assign them a mentor regardless of years of experience, just in the spirit of also helping them navigate the culture. So the first thing we would do, obviously at Smucker anyway, would be to kind of assign someone a mentor. But regardless of where you are, if you go into a company where that is an official assignment, ask for it. All in the spirit of, I'm going to be in a certain path in a certain organization, but I would love to know someone else, maybe that either is in this discipline, or can someone just help me better navigate the culture? So I say ask for it. And I would say, leverage them, whenever you need them. I think we always say within the mentoring arrangement, it's what you make it, right? It's what the two members of that group make it. So set the stage to say, is it okay if I reach out to you just for coffee quarterly? I'd love to get some career advice on this. Or maybe you're going through something personally. You just would like to, get another point of view from someone that's not really part of it with you to kind of get some counsel. But really, I think we talk a lot about like the mentee and the need from the mentee, but the mentor also has really important responsibility to be there, be present, be engaged. Within the council, and inevitably you're going to have some folks that we're all busy that maybe don't commit the way they need to. And we want to know that, because if you're not committing, you're not giving the value to the other relationship. So be present and, obviously hold that in confidence. It's supposed to be a situation where we don't want HR to get involved. We don't want there to be any of that. It should be a place that you really have a safe place. But also that you're honest, right? You don't want to just tell someone something they want to hear. It should be something that's very honest with each other, but done in a way that's helpful. Examples that'll help you get through something, not critiquing just for the sake of critiquing. So I would say mutual respect for each other, but definitely ask the organization for for a mentor, and hopefully they're one that will give you one, even if there's an informal program.
Perfect, thank you. We've got some questions coming in. I'll just ask one more and then we'll get to those. In those 5 months that you were out of a job and job hunting, I mean, I think probably there are some students on this call who are finding themselves in that situation, whether it's they were kind of planning on it or if they had offers rescinded. And I'm just interested in knowing, like, during those 5 months and you're thinking about willingness to take a side road and what you're going to do, and there's things that you do, and then there's hard stop no's, during that time when it's, you could be kind of down in the dumps a little bit about things and a little bit feeling down about it. How in those 5 months do you just keep pressing? Like, did you just keep applying for things? Did you kind of take time to really evaluate what you really wanted to do during that time? Like, what should students be doing right now who may be kind of in that same place you were at that time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say a little bit of all of that, right? So I think, one, it helped me to budget. I wasn't a great budget manager before that, right? So as debt was piling up, it really makes you focus on the things that are most important, as opposed to the things you want versus the things you need, right? So it helped me better understand how to really manage a budget and to stay within that budget, which I probably had not been good at because I was, I was still relatively young at the time and I didn't really have those skills. So I had to quickly learn, oh my gosh, I have this and I owe this. So how can I, start parsing away at that debt? That was one. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's very easy to just be down when something like that happens, to say, my goodness, what could I have done differently, or what went wrong? No, everybody goes through this, right? Everybody goes through times when things don't go the way you expect them to go. So, surround yourself with a network of people, one that'll pick you up and give you a break on the times when things are not the greatest. But yeah, just persevere, just keep plowing away, because something will open up, something will happen. You got there for a reason, right? You graduated, you did all the things you did, you worked really hard to get there. So don't give up, just keep pushing, because inevitably, it was a newspaper, that I applied to that ultimately got me the role that I had hoped to have. So don't give up. Believe in yourself, surround yourself with people that can help coach you. It might be a little bit of learning around maybe budget management, especially if times are a bit tough, but you will get through it. So.
Perfect, that's awesome. So this is a question from Jacob. For those still early in their college careers, and this is specifically for marketing, what are some trends that you see that students should start understanding now?
That's a great question. I would say, depending on customer or consumer, things are constantly changing, being very agile. So I would just say, continue to just I don't, do a lot of research. I mean, obviously things are at your disposal around, where's the ways that consumers and customers are getting their information. Obviously social is a huge way now. Influencers, whether that's, YouTube or otherwise, maybe just be curious, tap into different industry pubs, whether it's like Advertising Age or, FMI, if this is the food industry, but, find kind of the different places where information's coming through the industry that you hope to be in, or that you start becoming part of, and just be really curious. Like, just try to read the articles, give yourself time. We're all busy, whether it's in school or in the business world. You can very easily just get into the tactics of now, but give yourself a time, even if like an hour a week, to just devote it to looking at articles around what's happening, where's consumers going. I'm in the coffee business. A lot of trends start in coffee shops, and we're not in the coffee shop business, but we know trends start there. So being curious about what's going on, what's being offered, like what are they doing, so that we can then bring that into home for consumers in the business I'm in. So seek to understand, look for articles, do some research, get some of the emails from the different industry groups that you want to be part of, and take the time to read them. That's, just being that kind of present and curious, you're going to learn more than you realize. So that's what I would recommend there.
I think that's great advice, not only for marketing students, really for any student in the industry you want to get into. I mean, and you're right, if you just take a half an hour, I mean, it doesn't have to be, really time consuming, but I think, and then too, you end up going into conversations with people just even more informed, and you have things to talk about for those students who may be a little bit nervous about like the networking aspect of it. It gives you something to talk about. So
absolutely,
that's great advice, not only for marketing students, but all. So
very true.
We got a question from Vishali, who's a graduate student. She said, I can relate that the majority of courses require working in collaboration with teams, especially in graduate programs, but in undergraduate too. In a work setting, ever have a difference of opinion with a team member, and how did you handle it?
Oh, yes. That is a great question. Yes. I would say a lot, but the thing that I would always recommend to do, so one, there's going to be times, and rightly so, obviously everybody on this call, you're passionate about what you do, or you wouldn't even be seeking this opportunity, right? And all the ones that are being offered to you by the university. So I would just say, in the times, especially when you're most in it, right? You got the passion going. And you feel your blood kind of boiling one way or the other, right? I'll even go to the extreme. You have passion about something and you really want something to go a certain way, and you can see that passion coming from someone else and they want to go a different way. I think the biggest thing you'll do, and I know this is going to sound so simple, but it's take the breath, right? Don't respond in the heat of the moment, ever. Try not to. We all have done that. Take the breath. One, if you're in the moment, you're with the person, obviously you can't do something as much as an email. With emails, I will always say, if something gets you going, take a breath, get up, walk away, right? Walk around, give yourself a moment to kind of get your head around it before you respond. So if that's an email or a text or something, do that. If you're face to face, take a breath. And then we always kind of call it the power of the question. Before you react in the moment, more times than not, I found in my career, you have more common ground than you realize. It just, sometimes you get so much in the moment, you don't really realize that. So it's the power of the question. So seek to understand. So if someone's on one, maybe a different point of view, just say, help me understand, or tell me more. I really want to understand your point of view. Help me understand this part of it, especially the one, maybe the portion of it that you don't quite see eye to eye. But ask more questions than you would necessarily just kind of fighting against the point of view. Just say, help me understand. Use words like, help me understand. Tell me more about this. I'm really curious about what you said about that. And then you'll, inevitably, I would say 90% of the time you're going to find common ground. You might not still agree on everything, but you'll find common ground enough that you'll start building trust. And as soon as you build trust, it's incredible the work you can do with people, even when you don't have the same point of view. So lots of questions. And just seek to understand and start trying to build trust, because I think that'll help any of those times that you don't always agree.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. It's not even always about agreeing, because I mean, some of the, it stimulates conversation if there are differing opinions on things. And so I think it's really important, as you mentioned, just to figure out how to navigate those conversations in a way that's like coming from a positive, place that
exactly.
you have the conversation, as opposed to like shutting it down. If you disagree, like you could say certain things that are like, okay, that's the deal breaker, we're done here. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. Maddie asked, do you have any suggestions on how to stand out and make a good impression during interviews? And I'll just add to that, how could students be using this time if they're kind of going through, this willingness to take a side road kind of a thing. How did they make a good impression in an interview, and how could they potentially talk about this time that they might be having right now?
Yeah. I would definitely say I've interviewed a lot of people over the years. I would say, show a little vulnerability. It's okay. You don't have to know everything. It's good to have confidence. Absolutely have confidence. Believe in yourself. But it's okay to say, you know what? There was this time when my internship didn't go through and I was a little bit lost and tried to figure out what I do. But talk them through what you did, right? Because a lot of times it's not about the situation. It's about what did you do with that situation. So tell them, I did some more research. I tried to improve my skills. I took some online training classes to enhance my skills in whatever I felt like maybe I had opportunities in. Talk about what you did in the time that didn't go the way that you'd hoped it would. That would be one. I would also say, obviously, I know, and you guys will all know this, but do your research, understand the company you're obviously going to interview with. But also just, in the spirit of like, you obviously want to learn a lot from the company, but what do you think you can give to the company? So talk about, these are the things that I've done. And from what I've seen, you've, spoken about opportunities for the company. This is how I think the things I've done can help you with the problem you're solving. So maybe kind of turning the table a little bit around, clearly you want the opportunity to grow your skill set, but why do you think the things that you've done can actually help the company with what they're trying to solve for? So when you turn that around, those are the ones that always impress me the most. That have tried to at least seek to understand. You publicly said your opportunities are in top line growth or whatever it is. And then these are the things I've done, whether it's in a school committee or whether it's in a presentation I've done, whether it's in an internship I did that helped this company with exactly that. But I would say vulnerability and just being yourself. To me, because one of the leaders of our company, Tim Smucker, one of the past CEO, is an amazing, amazing man. And he would always say it's aptitude and attitude. If you've got a great attitude, you can learn almost anything, right? So if you have a great attitude and you're just a person that someone wants to connect with, then it's okay that you don't have all the experience in the world because you can learn that.
That's really good advice. And that's actually a really good segue for the next question. So, as you probably know, so we're so happy to have Smucker as a partner with the CBA in so many ways. We have so many students who, that's like their ideal company to work for. And so we have some questions about, about that in particular. So that was a good segue, what you're just talking about, what you might be looking for. What does Smuckers look for in an ideal employee?
Yeah, I would say the how and the what. So what I said prior, the how is really around, just your approach to things, right? So it's a little bit, curiosity. So asking questions, very many times by the time I'm interviewing someone, we have an amazing human resources group. So they've kind of filtered through looking at the resume to say, yeah, there's enough here that's meeting the criteria that you should talk to this person. So clearly, doing the work to say, I believe I'm, 80 for the 20 around what the job looks like. And honestly, once I realize that, I want to just know who the person is. Like, is this someone who is going to connect with teams? Are they going to be good with teams? We don't want just similar points of view. You want people that are going to come in and challenge you, but are you going to challenge in a way that's for the betterment of the business, the betterment of the company, and not just the betterment of themselves? Inevitably, you will better yourselves, but are you doing it with the right intent? I want to help this company deliver their results, and inevitably that means I'm going to be successful too. So it's kind of those types of things. And again, someone who can show that they can handle situations that don't always go their way. Honestly, I truly think that's almost more important than those that have had things kind of go their way, right? Not that that's not wonderful too, but it's really when you go through something and you can kind of talk through how you managed it. That shows a lot about the character and the person that you are. So definitely, who you are as an individual, how you've kind of overcome the things that you've done. And then honestly, as I mentioned before, how do you kind of take those things and help the company achieve what we're looking to achieve?
That's super helpful. I'm sure to a lot of the students on the call who are interested in applying for and interviewing at Smuckers. I'll jump down just real quick to a question that's sort of related to that, which is, with COVID, is Smuckers going to be having interns? And if so, will the company physically on the Smucker campus, or will it be online, virtual?
Yes. So we did continue the internship program this summer. It's been virtual. So I have someone on my team that is an intern with our group. And yeah, I felt so badly just for the way this has come to be, especially at Smucker. Honestly, being there 23 years, I'm so envious of our interns. They go, the HR team does an amazing job just creating this curriculum of just getting that cohort to get to know each other, a lot of socialization. It's so awesome. So I feel badly they're missing out on those opportunities, but in true form, they're over delivering just a lot of connections. We have teams on Teams and just those types of things. And I connected with my intern last week, and he said he was very nervous about not having the connections, not getting, kind of that social, getting to know each other. But he said it's been quite the opposite. He's felt really good about how he's connected. We assigned him intentionally to a manager that I think we call them our basic beliefs, but it's really someone who cares a lot about people, ethics, all of those things. And this person is just literally a walking cultural example. So we intentionally paired them together to make sure that he got a really special experience, even though it wasn't going to be like face to face. So yeah, we've kept our internship program, and it's been so remote.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. And I think there's just still a lot of uncertainty about the future, but it's just good to hear that it's still continuing on this summer. So another good question. Currently hunting for a job after graduation with an MBA in strategic marketing this summer. Due to OPT requirements, I don't have a ton of time left to find something. My goal is to end up working in marketing in the future. To the point of this, call, how far of a detour should I be willing to take?
It's a great question. So yeah, strategic marketing, that's a wonderful major. I would say that's interesting. I would say anything, even if it's not in marketing, I mean, strategy, it's so interesting that you say this, because even within our company, we've been around a very long time. There's always a lot of dialogue about strategy, right? Strategy lives in every part of the organization. Even within marketing, we have, it's a brand strategy, we have an innovation strategy, we have consumer engagement strategy, we have, strategies across all these different groups. So even if it ends up being something in like a corporate strategic role, or even, I don't know where you may be looking, but even, it's in many of the different functions within a business organization, you're going to have some type of strategy that you'd be working on. So I would say, as long as there's a strategic element to it, it doesn't have to be marketing, but you can definitely get experience that could tie you back and get you ready for when you do ultimately find the role that you're looking for. Because strategy is in everything. If you don't have strategy in everything, you shouldn't be doing it, right? We say that always filter through that lens, or it's, the organization wouldn't be making it a priority.
Yeah, it's all about those transferable skills, right? So like you might take a job now and you might learn something that you didn't either know you liked, or something that you can use when you go to get, and you're right. I mean, the same thing, your first 3 years at Smucker weren't in marketing, but it helped get you in the door and get to know the company. And then you kind of got into the area that you were
absolutely
interested in. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Mentioned for this is from Martin, you mentioned having a friend who helped you develop a network out of their place of work. I sometimes find it difficult to figure out how to go about those types of conversations with friends. How did you go about talking to them about that?
Yeah, I was blessed, similar to Akron, where the business school actually assigned us mentors from different companies. So that's how that ended up working out. I would say, I get a lot of LinkedIn requests for individuals. A lot of students and things are just trying to, connect, and I accept those. So I would just say, try to do that. Obviously, in LinkedIn, there's always lots and lots of opportunities. If you see someone that has not, experience that you might be curious about. I know not everybody's always going to excuse me, make the time, but at least try. Say what kind of advice, even if you don't have a lot of time, could you give me a couple nuggets of advice, or is there somebody within your organization I could connect to that has something like this? So just, put a lot of feelers out there for any of the companies, or I'm sorry, I have allergies, bad time of year. Just to try to figure out like who might you be able to find across different organizations. And definitely, if you want to stay in Northeast Ohio, or if maybe you're even seeking to go somewhere else, look at that area of the country and see what companies might reside there, and try to find individuals through LinkedIn and just see if there's their willingness to have them, counsel you a little bit, even if it's just a couple bullets here or there, and then maybe that gets you in the door and you can have more of a dialogue.
Yeah, and I just find that if you come forward with a thoughtful request, there's rarely a time when someone's gonna be like, meh, no. I mean, most of the time, like, and especially for students, I feel like now for students is even the best time to do that, because like there's just something about students that people they want to help.
Yeah.
It's, oh, you're you're just starting out. And so I just find, I think for students, and I don't know if you agree, I think the hardest part is just like reaching out, like actually making the step. It's not the actual outreach or what you say. It's just like the taking the leap to kind of put yourself out there. Cause I find people rarely say no.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely transparent. I'm more likely to accept a student request than I am, no offense,
Right.
somebody that's seeking to like get my business,
Right.
without a doubt. Absolutely. Yes.
I know we always tell students now, we're like, it's never going to be easier than it is right now. People
Yes.
want to help you,
Yes.
and like they're bringing things to you. So like, take advantage of. You don't really realize that until you're not a student anymore.
Correct.
This is a question from Liz. It's a good one. You could probably even comment on this question. Nice to offer. If you want to come up and share your experiences, we'd love to hear it too. But so Liz asked, which unintended detour in your career has ended up being the most rewarding learning opportunity, either about your career path or about yourself, and why?
Oh, Liz, you always ask such good questions. So I so I know Liz from a long time. She worked at Smucker with me. Hi, Liz. So I would say probably, and I know you might even remember this. I was working on our peanut butter business. So I was on the Jif brand, and I was pregnant with my first child, and nervous as any new expecting mom would be. And I mentioned I started my career in the away from home side of the business, and I was in the retail side of the business. And I was asked when I came back from maternity leave to go back to the away from home business in a director role. And at that point in time, probably was just the stress of all the different change going on in my life, be it the baby and the job again. And I was just like, oh, do I really want to come back and do something different than what I'm doing now when I'm gonna have all this change in my life? And the organization had changed a bit, and I was just stressed. And I didn't know what to do. So two benefits came from that. I was able to end my current role before I went maternity leave. And then when I came back, I was going to be in a new position. So little did I know, all of us, and it's not something we should encourage, but even when I'm on vacation, I'm always kind of tapping in, checking emails here or there, more so for peace of mind and make sure I don't come back to something I'm not expecting. But I had nothing to check into. The role was kind of closed. I kind of had passed that on, and I hadn't yet gone into my new role. So I actually had a little bit of like mental freedom. So I was like, that wasn't what I was expecting. I thought I was going to come back to this role, but it actually gave me a break, and a true break, which was amazing. And then when I went back into the role, when I did go back from maternity leave, I was able to kind of embrace this new opportunity. And I had a team that was yearning for like help with a change. And so I think helping them kind of guide them through because we were acquiring something at the time, and kind of going through that change with them and being part of that and helping kind of pump them up ended up being the best opportunity that I thought I would have, when it was something I wouldn't have chosen at that point in time, because just of the change going on in my life. But it ended up being really good for a personal reason and taking a mental break, but also as I kind of came on board and could really feel that people were yearning for help, it was just something I really embraced. So that's what it would be. Thanks, Liz. Oh, Kim, I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering. So thank you. Liz is the chair for the Department of Marketing Executive Advisory Board. So, and as you mentioned, work at Smucker. So we know Liz well. So thank you for that question. It's a really good one. This is a question from Maddie, and I think it's a really good one. I love this question. We're going to kind of put you on the spot though here. Have you read any books that helped you in your journey? And you can talk about any specific to marketing or otherwise. If so, what were they and what was your key takeaway? And I'll even add to that, I don't know if you do podcasts or anything, but if there are any, like, one thing students can be doing right now, even if maybe let's say they're not in, or the job didn't work out as they planned, is like they can still be reading and listening. So what books have you read that helped you? Any podcasts that you've listened to that helped you?
Yeah. So one thing, and I give the company so much credit, about 4 years ago, we partnered with Case and did a whole training on resonant leadership. And one of the books that we were asked to read is called Resonant Leadership, and it's by Boyatzis. And it's one of the best books I've ever read. And it really is, it talks to you a lot about some of the questions you guys were asking around just how how to really kind of find your, I'm calling it true north. It's not what they call it in the book, but trying to find like what your personal passions are in your life, not just your career, but is your total self. And what is your kind of life plan? What are the things, if you fast forwarded, 15 years, what would you hope to be doing? And kind of holding yourself, it's like creating a learning plan. What are the things you want to hold yourself accountable to? And what are the things I'm going to do to get there? So that was really meaningful. And the reason it was so meaningful is even after I read it, actually it was longer than 4 years ago. Oh my goodness, it was 7 years ago. So my second child was born 7 years ago. And I read it again about 4 years ago. And I checked myself, like, was I working the plan? And I was like, oh, half of it I was, the other half I wasn't. But it was a good kind of reminder of making sure you kind of work the plan. And there's this thing called sacrifice syndrome they talk about in the book. And it's when you kind of find yourself kind of spiraling a little bit in a negative way around, maybe I'm not being my best self. Am I asking those thoughtful questions? It does talk about the power of the question. And, checking yourself before you get into a place where you start heading down this negative path where you're not being the best self that you want to be. You're not holding yourself accountable to the learning plan that you'd wanted to take, and stopping yourself before you get too far down that negative path. And it's every time I read it, and I read it now twice, I come back and I'm like, I needed this right now. So I highly, highly recommend it. It has a lot of, it's not just about your career, it's about your whole person and truly holding yourself accountable to the things you want and making a plan to get there. So that's definitely one I would highly recommend. Taking my own advice, when I do have time, I do more reading of articles. I don't have as many podcasts. I think Liz has some that she's talked to me about. And I know a lot of people do also, but I would just say, just seek out some of the different resources that, you find interesting and read a lot, because it really does help you prepare your head around kind of, even if you don't know where you want to go, it'll give you advice on kind of where you might want to go.
That's great. If anyone else has any really great podcasts you'd like to listen to, or books that you've read that are related to marketing or not, stick them in the chat. I'm sure everyone would love to hear.
Yeah, me too.
This is a really good question and really relevant, actually, I just feel like, to right now. So how do you feel, this is from Mackenzie, how do you feel that data has become a larger part of your job over the years?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. It has become tremendously important, right? It's so interesting too. Starting my career in the away from home part of the business, there was very little data. That's gotten a little bit better, but it's still not as robust as some of the data that we have, like on the retail side with consumption data and in the products business. But it's become incredibly important, right? So in the spirit of like every dollar spent, you want to put your dollars in the most effective, I'm talking marketing dollars more now, but it could be anything, or even capital dollars or any of those things. You want it to make sure it goes to the best return. So there's a high expectation that you have data that can back up everything you're doing. So data-driven decision-making, whether that's capital investment and knowing your return, like, how am I going to pay for that? Or whether it's on the marketing side, what is the best place for my dollars? And honestly, especially in a company like Smucker, where we have a lot of brands, and we just hired a new chief operating officer. It helps them better understand, if you look broadly, because you can get too much into your own world, for where should I spend that dollar? If I have an extra dollar, should it go to a brand like Folgers, or should it go to a tinier brand? Or maybe that tiny brand has a great return. Maybe it should go there. But it kind of helps you better understand, especially when you're maybe having a challenging year, where your dollar should be spent. So data has become incredibly important to the way that we're making decisions going forward. So yeah, great question.
That's a good one. You support agree on data analytics and things, and I think marketing, I think really any position is using it really right now to make decisions. You talked about data-driven decision making, and decision making is just, I feel like more important. And even as students are like learning how to make pitches on things, it's like, hey, you got to back this up with something, so that data, it's just become really, really interesting, especially as of late. So
agree.
There was Charlotte mentioned one book that she recently read was called The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. So,
nice. That's a good one. I'll check it out.
Well, what other questions from the group? Any other questions? And I don't know if there's any others. Okay. Well, with that then, I'll just kind of talk about a few things here, and if people still have questions, feel free to type them in the chat as well. So for those of you who are here for a class session, I will share with you QR code. Oops, hold on just a second, bear with me. That you can use, that was the wrong one, you can use to get credit for your class. Hang on just a second here. Before I hop off everybody, and I'll give some thank yous here. Okay, there we go. I think that's better. Got it. Okay. Let me just pull up the chat, make sure I can see everything. Okay. There was something that came through here. Oh, yeah, perfect. There was just some a question about sending. Yeah, it was, the author was Boyatzis. Yeah. She was asking a little bit more about the name of the books. This is Liz. But he has several with the word leadership in the name. I only got sacrifice in the name of the title. So the Boyatzis book that you were talking was Resident Leadership?
Resident Leadership, yeah.
Resonant, right?
Yes.
Yeah, got it. So, yep, perfect. Got it. So now that's in the chat. Okay. So for those of you who are here and need class credit for this, right now you can scan the QR code that's on your screen to log your credit in an app called Suitable. Hopefully you're familiar with it by now, but you can just hold your camera phone up to the screen if you don't have the app yet, and it will take you to the app where you can single sign on with your UA login credentials. If you already have the Suitable app, you can scan this QR code directly through the app. Before I get into thank yous, I'll do a shameless plug for our session next week. It's called The Networking Advantage, and it's going to be with Michael Moden, who is the Director of Global Business Development at TikTok. So Tina talked a little bit today about, the importance of networking, and so it's a really great segue into next week's session on, how do I network and how can it give me a step ahead. So we're really excited about this session. We hope to see everyone back next week. So next Wednesday, this happens every Wednesday throughout July at 1 p.m. I want to give a thank you to everyone who came today, who logged on. I hope you found it really useful. I thought it was a really great session. So thank you for coming, and hopefully you'll come back. And then just an extra special thank you to Tina, our speaker here. I say this all the time, but I feel like I can't say it enough. Like, really, these sessions, you are what make it. And we're just so lucky and so grateful to have business partners like you who are willing to give your time to give presentations and share your advice with students. We're just so grateful. And it's one of the really great things about the CBA that students get to benefit from. So just a really sincere thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the hour of your time. So thanks to all of you. And if I am on LinkedIn, so if any additional questions, you can reach out to me directly. But thanks so much. Have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'll also tell the colleagues that logged in today for support. Appreciate you, and have a great day.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Tina. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.